Young people in China are starting to stand up against strict government rules and are open to new ideas. In today's video, we're going to talk about why this is happening, how it could change China's future, and what it means for the rest of the world. This is a story about rebellion, change, and the strength of young people, and you won't want to miss it. In June 2019, as anti-extradition protests erupted in Hong Kong. When these students arrived in August, they faced a city where public transport was often disrupted, and they encountered protests depicted by Chinese state media as violent riots. This was a shocking and unfamiliar experience for them. Others were intimidated by pre-arrival warnings from mainland officials about the dangers of discussing sensitive topics and wanted to avoid any information they were told could be harmful to the nation. What really shocked me was how, in recent years, the situation has changed drastically. A growing number of students, both in mainland China and abroad, began reporting their teachers or fellow students who supported the Hong Kong protests to party authorities. This often involved revealing personal details on Chinese social media, a practice known as doxing. In response, I had to advise my students to be cautious on social media. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, for example, are all blocked in mainland China to avoid drawing unwanted attention from the mainland government. I also stopped discussing sensitive topics like the Hong Kong protests and the re-education camps in Xinjiang in class. Instead, I shifted to having students write essays in these subjects. Ironically, while I always encourage my students to think critically and keep an open mind, I found myself teaching them self-censorship. This situation is a sharp contrast to what we observed during the 2014 Umbrella movement. Back then, mainland students in their class were very curious about the protests. They actively participated in or observed the demonstrations and were eager to discuss the causes behind the movement, Hong Kong's unique status, and the power dynamics between Hong Kong and Beijing. Despite warnings from the CCP officials to avoid the protesters, these students were keen to learn more. They shared their observations on Chinese social media, even though their posts were quickly removed. This shift in attitude over just 5 years raises a pressing question. Why have young people in mainland China become so reluctant to understand and engage with information from outside their own official media? The dramatic change in their attitudes towards their peers in Hong Kong fighting for democracy highlights the remarkable success of the CCP's propaganda efforts. The CCP has ramped up its propaganda efforts over the past 5 years, using advanced techniques to control the narrative and sway public opinion. This party's messaging has become more pervasive and sophisticated, making it harder for young people to access alternative viewpoints. With more stringent surveillance and control measures, students are more cautious about what they say and do online. The fear of being reported and doxxed has led to a chilling effect where students self-censor to avoid trouble. There has been a significant cultural shift among the younger generation, influenced by heightened nationalism and a stronger emphasis on unity and loyalty to the CCP. This shift has made students more resistant to ideas that challenge the official narrative, including the democratic aspirations of their peers in Hong Kong. Understanding these factors helps explain why the current generation of mainland students is so different from those of previous years in their attitudes towards Hong Kong's pro-democracy movements and the information they receive. In July 2019, the Chinese government took a bold step to tighten its grip on education by introducing new guidelines for primary and middle schools. These guidelines aimed to instill the party's values and boost patriotism from a young age. But the effort to mold students to support the Chinese Communist Party of China starts much earlier, especially for university students. For years, the authorities have employed student information officers at universities to keep tabs on the opinions of their peers and teachers. This system of student informants has profound implications for the moral and ethical development of an entire generation. Some students take their roles very seriously, often acting as government informants with little regard for ethics. This practice has been widely reported, confirming my own observations that many students embrace their informant roles wholeheartedly, sometimes without any direct reward from the party. The CCP's control over information is even more extensive. The government relies heavily on propaganda and censorship to maintain its authority. It has built the so-called Great Firewall to block foreign websites and control the flow of information within China. In 2013, the State Internet Information Office further tightened content restrictions. By 2014, the government established the Cyberspace Administration, and in 2017, it enacted a sweeping cybersecurity law. With access to big data and artificial intelligence, Chinese state media can effectively monitor and manipulate public opinion. Private internet companies also play a role by promoting pro-government messages and censoring dissent. The rapid development of China's digital infrastructure ensures that citizens depend heavily on domestic platforms, which are tightly controlled. This setup creates a censored internet environment that excludes the global internet, which the CCP views as a threat. For mainland students in places like Hong Kong, adjusting to open societies can be challenging. They must navigate a media landscape vastly different from the censored environment they're used to in China. The CCP's tight control over both education and information reflects its broader strategy to maintain power and influence over the Chinese population. With the introduction of the cybersecurity law in China, a new wave of state control swept through the digital world. The law targeted virtual private network providers, VPNs, and cracked down on social media posts that were seen as threats to social stability. This heavy-handed approach by the government had a profound impact, deeply altering how Chinese internet users engage online. After the law's implementation, there was a noticeable decline in openly confrontational comments about politically sensitive issues. Research indicates that following reports of punishment for online critics, many people became more cautious. Mainland students, in particular, began avoiding political discussions to steer clear of attracting unwanted attention from authorities. This shift in behavior is not just a matter of choice, but also a result of a pervasive fear of retribution from the government. In 2017, top universities in China took steps to monitor the political views of their teachers. Criticized by the General Commission for Discipline Inspection, the party's watchdog, these institutions were pressured to strengthen their promotion of party ideology. By 2019, Fudan University even removed the phrase freedom of thought from its charter, replacing it with a commitment to strict adherence to party leadership. These moves are part of the CCP's broader strategy to cement its influence over educational institutions and the younger generation. The changes didn't stop there, though. The CCP extended its control over education by implementing guidelines that ensure ideological conformity from a young age. Primary and middle schools are now required to instill party values and patriotism in students. This extensive ideological training reflects the CCP's determination to shape the thoughts and behaviors of future generations. Despite these efforts, exposure to democratic processes and values can still spark critical thinking in young people. For instance, after Taiwan's presidential election in January 2020, some mainland students began discussing the importance of voting rights. Similarly, the coronavirus outbreak led to increased criticism of the Chinese government's handling of the crisis and praise for Hong Kong's transparent and efficient response. These developments suggest that even in a repressive environment, the contrast between different political systems can inspire students to question official narratives. Observing the differences in how governments handle crisis can encourage mainland students to look beyond state media and recognize the democratic aspirations of people in places like Hong Kong. The ongoing struggle for democratic universal suffrage in Hong Kong highlights the demand for greater political freedom. It's hoped that as mainland students become more aware of these issues, they will develop a more nuanced understanding of democracy and be motivated to seek information beyond what is offered by state-controlled media. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.